The path to entrepreneurial success will be wrought with criticism, with doubt, with naysayers. And whereas many people look to alleviate all criticism, the best thing to do is understand that it will always be present. And so rather than look to eliminate it completely, how about we use it as a tool to fuel the growth mindset necessary for resilience and for a business and a legacy that outlives you? Let's grow. There's an old adage of sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt. It sounds great as perhaps a saying or a slogan in childhood, but the reality is there are definitely effects of constant criticism and negativity and doubts from others and from naysayers. And unless your mind is resilient enough to withstand the onslaught of the doubters, then those words do begin to become internalized. It is very important to be mindful of how you're spoken to. It is crucial that you be one who has a safeguard around your mind and your consciousness. The idea that words will never hurt was likely spoken by someone who did not understand emotional intelligence and actually the power of words. There is power in it. And so, because we cannot set our lives up to be absent of any criticism, because it is not possible to truly have a life of success and achievement without there also being the doubters and the naysayers, those who look to poke holes in or find chinks in the armor, those who look to find comfort in why they are not pushing beyond their own self-imposed limits. Those who are looking to find comfort in doing nothing will oftentimes look for what's wrong with the person who's actually going after it, falling down, tripping up, making mistakes. They point to that. You often hear people say, when they look at high achievers who fall from grace, there is this notion of, see, that's the reason why I don't want that. Or they look at those who have great wealth and then they fall or they lose it, and becomes a comforting conversation for many to justify not going after dreams themselves. Well, I am not one of those. I am not one of those individuals who will look at a fall from grace and determine, okay, that's justification for not pushing beyond my own limits. I recognize that is an escapism type theology. It is wrought with cynicism and judgment and pure laziness. And so for those of you who are achievers, for those of you who look to excel and who have been stopped, perhaps you've experienced some hesitation because of a mistake that was made or because of a fear of criticism, the first thing to understand is that it will not stop. There is not a way for you to set your life up where someone does not have judgment about the way that you're doing it. I believe, I forget who said it, but the statement goes something of this nature. It said, I don't know. He said, I don't know the key to success, but I can tell you that the key to failure is looking to please everybody. I don't know the key to success, but I can tell you that the key to failure is looking to please everyone. When you think about it, how is it even possible to please everybody when not everybody even likes the same things? If you've ever found yourself in a spot where you said yes, but you really wanted to say no, or you said no when you really wanted to say yes, understand that was a moment in time where you were out of alignment. And as I have come to know, people don't really expect perfection as much as they want and respect more integrity or alignment. That's why there is the constant encouragement to be true to yourself. Be who you are. Be true to you. Be aligned in that regard. We are not expecting perfection as much as we expect or respect alignment. But we cannot get beyond this, the notion. We can't get beyond criticism. So we want to be asking the right questions. So the question is not, how do I go through my life without being criticized as much as, or being judged, as much as it is, how can I set my life up to not be derailed by criticism and judgment. Because if it's inevitable that it will be happening, then the idea is, how do you use it as a tool and resource? So that's what I really want to explore then in this episode of Unmuted, is how to use criticism as a way to thrive, how to use criticism as a way to fuel your growth mindset. If we know and can expect that it will happen, if without question, it will be part of your experience as an achiever. Please understand that as an achiever, as an entrepreneur, as a growth-oriented person, as someone who desires more for your life, understand that criticism and judgment will be part of it. There will be those who don't like how you're doing what you're doing. And understand that their expression of dislike or criticism is oftentimes because it shines a light on where they have settled. It shines light on where they have become satisfied with a standard that is less than what they are capable of. And so what they look to do then is criticize those who are actually in the arena, those who are actually on the field. Where you don't hear a lot of criticism and judgment coming from is from those who are in the process of achievement, and those who are in the process of transformation. Those who are actually in growth mode spend very little time downing and doubting and naysaying and criticizing those who are on their way. So we first look at the source of the criticism. And that in and of itself could actually provide you some level of relief and or release. But criticism in and of itself doesn't have to be bad, doesn't even have to be negative, depending on your interpretation of it. In fact, nothing is either good or bad, but our mind, our story, our frame makes it so. So when it comes to criticism, the framework that I use when dealing with or in a bout with criticism, and I've had a lot of it, what I usually do is I'll first, with the criticism, I first ask myself, is there some truth to the statement? Is there even a kernel of truth, even a little bit of truth, even a small smidgen of truth to the critique? So first, is there truth? And if there is, then I ask, okay, well, if would improving upon that make me better? Now, if I look at it and there's not an ounce of truth, there's not even a kernel of truth, I give it no more energy. I give it no more time. If there's not even a kernel of truth to the criticism, I pay it no attention. I give it no energy whatsoever. I just, I'll likely respond with, "What? That's interesting. That's odd. Okay, all right. You clearly don't know who I am. That's fine." And even that is too long of a conversation, right? Okay. That's if there's no truth to it. But you know what I've come to find is that the reason why it hits, the reason why it stings, at least for me, is because oftentimes there is some truth to it. Now, rather than get defensive, as I have been known to do, rather than get defensive, which zaps my energy, becomes an energy leak and not very effective, what I've begun to do is I say, okay, where in the statement, where in the criticism is there truth? Even the smallest amount. Because once I identify some truth and I determine that improving upon it can make me better, then now I've disempowered the critic and I've empowered myself. Once I can take what was shared and identify a way for me to grow and expand as a result of, if I can become more resilient as a result of, if I am better as a result of, now I take the power away from the critic. I take the power away from the doubter, away from the naysayer, and I've empowered myself because I'm going to use this experience. I'm going to use that feedback as a way to improve. So when criticism comes, when you've been treated what you consider unfairly, you've been done unjustly, the first thing to do is ask yourself if whether or not there is some truth to it. I remember being teaching a personal development course, and there was a young lady there She was in her teens. She was in her teens, and this was, the course went for like 3 days. She was there. She showed up every day. She was on the front row. She was keeping notes and all sorts of things. But she never said anything. She never said much. And on one of the breaks, there's a gentleman who approached me, and he's like, you know what? I remember taking your class. It's been almost 20 years ago when I took your. And I'm like, he continued talking, and I was like, wait a minute, I remember that, right? And then I apologized to him because I was like, man, 20 years ago, I had no idea what I was even talking about. I apologize. Okay. But then he stopped me and he said, no. He said, why I am so excited is because you've been consistent and you've been with it long enough that now my daughter is in your class. My daughter. And I was like, her? Yeah, that's my daughter, right? And so he was really excited that that things had come full circle. Well, now I go up front and I'm delivering the class again, and though she hadn't said anything, I went against my own like rule of like calling people out because and so I pointed to her and I asked her some questions, and and then she looks at me. This young lady looks at me and she says, "You're a jerk." And I'm like, huh? She said, "You're a jerk." And now the class is gasping, and I'm like, and nothing that I said was even like offensive or anything like that, right? But that's what she said, "You're a jerk." I was like, and her dad's in the back. I look back at him, he's like, he got his head, his face is in his hands, and my response to her, I said, "There's some truth to that." And she's like, "What?" I said, "There's some truth to that. There is some truth to that." I said, "You could actually speak to like family members and, my ex-wife and, even my children, right? There are definitely people that you could speak to who would say that Courtland is a jerk." So there's some truth to it. And she just, and when I said that, she started to smile. And now the class is looking around. I said, here's what's true. There is some truth to what she said. And then I went on to express to them that actually this was a great lesson for me because I was out of alignment in the moment. I never call on anyone who doesn't voluntarily share. And because I wanted to, puff myself up, her dad's in the back. I had just learned that. And I wanted to use it to elevate myself. And so even in the moment, though what I was saying to her was not something that was diminishing, my come from was not grounded. It was about me and not about her. I said, now there was no way for you all to know that, but in this moment, I'm honoring the fact that she could feel it and read through it. And there are places in my life where I show up as a jerk. There is some truth to that. I'm telling you that particular experience made me better as a facilitator and trainer. And then I've been able to apply that. I've been able to apply that to other areas of my life. When the criticism comes, don't immediately defend. Ask yourself if whether or not there is some truth to it. And then step 2, if there is truth to it, ask yourself, would improving upon it make you better? Because if improving upon it would make you better, now you take the power away from the criticism and the energy of someone who doesn't believe in you, let's say, and now you're empowered to fuel a growth mindset. So you first ask, is there truth? Second, if there is, would improving upon it make me better? And then third, look for an immediate place to implement the new action or the new idea. So because success, achievement appreciates speed. The longer we deliberate on it and think about, what we're going to do different and how we're going to do it different, right? We sometimes, just talk ourselves out of it completely, or worse yet, even forget. There's an idea in business called the first mover advantage, or speed of implementation being a secret weapon for those who highly achieve. Once you identify a place where you can grow and expand and be better, look to immediately implement. In that moment, now I'll be really transparent with you. I didn't realize that I was doing it in the moment. Okay. I didn't realize that in that moment I was executing and practicing that. But first, with that participant, I first acknowledged that there was truth in what she was saying. And even as I'm standing there, I'm thinking, okay, can this make me better? Because, hey, Courtland, you got out of alignment right here. And then I immediately looked to implement. And so if you'll do that when it comes to criticism, right, you are empowered. You have a more resilient mindset. You're more positioned for growth versus being fixed. A fixed mindset would hear the criticism and only look to defend. But we already covered, if there's no truth to it, then you give it no energy. But if there is some truth to it, then you look for ways that you can improve. Now, here's what's also true. You want to be in environments, you want to position yourself, place yourself, ensure that you are in environments that don't just point out what's wrong. I've been in situations such as this, both personally and professionally, where it seemed that the only thing that's highlighted is what's wrong. Well, here's what I would say to that. Any individual that can only point to what's wrong with you doesn't truly desire to be with you in the first place. If they can, if there's only emotion and passion to what they identify as being wrong with how you are, how you speak, what you wear, where you go, what you enjoy, what you like to talk about, if they can only find negativity in the frame of things that you find natural and enjoyment of, then that's not a person. That's not a person for you. At least for me, that's not someone that I will bend over backwards, go any extra lengths to get the approval of, because it's going to constantly be work. You will constantly find yourself exhausted in the pursuit of acceptance by and approval of someone who does not appreciate how you are. Now, take me as I am is not an excuse to remain the same. Take me as I am is not a free pass to be less than what I'm capable of or to live below a standard. It's not a pass to do that. But to recognize that there are things that you enjoy, that you appreciate, places that you like to go, things that you like, and giving all of that up for the approval of someone else is a recipe for disaster. You'll be exhausted. You'll be exhausted, uninspired, and you won't be able to maintain whatever that relationship is, be it professional or personal. So, there's this old adage that, the customer's always right. I disagree. In fact, nothing could be further from the truth. There's I know a suit maker who allows, like, you can pick and choose whatever you want and they'll make a suit out of it. But as a designer, I think that wasn't a good choice because it was designed by, that wasn't a good choice. Like to set your business up where you're always acquiescing to a customer's desire when you are the expert doesn't lead to lasting legacy and fulfillment. It just does not. So the idea that the customer's always right or your relationship is always right, in order to win the approval and the acceptance of, is actually a fixed mindset, and it's absent of boundaries. And the absence of boundaries is the evidence of or presence of low self-esteem. So in order to survive criticism, we first accept or acknowledge that it will always be present. You cannot live your life in such a way that no one will have a problem with how you're doing it. But the further away you get, the further you move, the more you advance, the quieter those voices get, because you're leaving the place from where you were. So as it relates to criticism itself, we first ask, we're honest enough and reflective enough to ask if whether or not there's even a kernel of truth. And if there's some truth to it, we then go to, well, would improving upon that make me better? And if the answer to that is yes, now you've disempowered the critic and you've empowered yourself. And if you identify that there is a way for you to improve upon it and that improvement would make you better, then you use speed of implementation. Take immediate action. because achievement rewards those who are willing to act. And so I dispel the myth of sticks and stones may hurt my bones, but words will never hurt. That's not true. Words have power. Words have power. And if internalized, then they become manifested. And you'll find yourself out as an individual looking for acceptance and approval of others, even at the diminishment of yourself. Be so strong that you're willing to go it alone if necessary, that you're willing to say no to relationship, be they personal or professional, because there's a standard by which you speak to yourself, and you'll only be in relationship with one who speaks to you the way you speak to yourself. Doing that leads to growth mindset, resilience, and it will fuel you for the journey towards achievement. I hope that helps. And if it does, don't keep it a secret. Let someone know that this podcast does exist. I invite you to subscribe to the channel by clicking the subscribe button somewhere along here. Click the subscribe button. And if you've gotten value from this conversation, I would really like for you to join my email list at courtlandwarren.com/opt-in, OPTIN. courtlandwarren.com/opt-in to join the mailing list. And that way I can communicate with you without being dependent on platforms and all their algorithm changes and so forth. I appreciate you. Thank you for listening to the podcast, and we'll see you next time.